on those deep balls, when he throws those deep balls, if you go back and look at the film, he kicks his leg way up. His back foot just kind of lifts up off the ground like he is doing a yeah. He's like kicking somebody.
Welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, my co-host John Powell and I review Georgia's 31-24 victory over Mike Leach and Mississippi State. As you can imagine, we do a deep dive into JT Daniels' spectacular debut. As always, remember you can follow us on social media at My Gotta Podcast. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. We were a little off on our score predictions there. I definitely didn't see what happened coming at all.
I don't think anybody did, and clearly Vegas didn't see it either, because that apparently Munsoning was definitely something we should have been doing.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I was looking back, like, as all the, like, when we recorded, like, I knew there were guys out, but I don't think that number had dropped yet, you know, like the number of scholarship players that traveled. And then when I heard all that, I was like, oh, well, man, we were way over the top Munsoning kind of deal. And then it was like we underestimated it. That was, you know, it was like my thought process was all over the place the day of the game.
Right. I mean, I don't think that, frankly, this is one of those games where it's like, you know, you could call it a struggle win, and it certainly was for many, you know, reasons. But like, if you'd have told me that they were going to be missing that many guys and show up the way that they did, that just speaks to either their ability to get guys excited to play, or we've got other issues going on our side of things in terms of a motivation.
Yeah. I definitely felt like it was definitely a tip of the cap to them, right? I mean, them, motivation, I don't know, having the guys that were there ready to play. I mean, I'm sure that was a huge motivator for them, you know, us against the world kind of deal. But yeah, so right. I don't know, didn't see it coming, but so let's see. So let's run down our predictions quickly. So we hit on the score. I went 27-14. You were a whole point off of me, 28-14. Final was 31-24. So you were pretty close on our score. You only missed us by 3 points. And then they scored 10 more. So not too bad.
Yeah, the defense and the defense right. we did not trust
seriously.
On Saturday. Holy cow.
I'm going to go in reverse order of what we did. So this is another thing. We predicted Mississippi State quarterback starter, and we both said Costello, and it was Rogers, and Costello actually, I think, didn't even make the trip. So they kind of kept that close to the vest. So I don't know. I guess Rogers, true freshman, had committed to Washington State and then switched to Mississippi State. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see him continue there.
I think that had we or at least I guess I should only speak for myself, but like during the broadcast, they actually talked a good bit about his recruitment and brought up a lot of that stuff. So I didn't dive too deep into that, to be honest. So I
didn't know that piece either. I knew he had played the game before, but like it sounded like everyone was just still assuming it was going to go back to Costello. So I don't know.
He basically came to Mississippi State because of the Pirate.
Right. Exactly.
So
let's see. We both picked Daniels as a starter, and we were correct there. I went under on 1.5 quarterbacks. You went over. So I was there. Daniels went wire to wire. So that was cool. And we will talk much about JT. And then finally, we both said yes to black jerseys, which was true.
Yes.
I guess we could kind of start with that. I did have some notes about that. So first off, the jerseys looked awesome just with the team coming out of the tunnel. I thought, like, in the beginning, you know, like when the game started on the broadcast, they had this shot kind of like over the banner that they run through into the tunnel. The smoke was going, and then walking out just looked cool. So I don't know. I thought they looked clean there. And just the black jersey on the red helmet always looks awesome, I think. I do have some nitpicks. I actually didn't really like the dog collar on TV. Like generally you didn't notice, but when they get in tight, you can see it. That was kind of distracting. And then
not a big fan of the dog collar.
And then I also didn't like the shoulders. So I'll say I loved the numbers and like the font of everything also was clean. I actually like it a lot better than what we usually have. But the lack of a number on the shoulder was actually distracting to me. Like first off, I don't like the new bulldog as much. Like I like either standing bulldog or Uga face, not like the
Mm-hmm.
new looking Uga face. So I didn't like that much anyway. I kind of knew that going in, but like they're also like they didn't have their jersey number like on top of their shoulder or anything. Like they just had that bulldog patch. Because I actually had a couple. Now maybe this is like Jim, you need to wear your glasses while you watch games.
Yeah.
But I was like, who is that? Because like I couldn't see their number on their shoulder. I had to wait till they turned, kind of thing. So I don't know. But overall, glad to see the black jerseys come out. It does not matter. I think we make too big of a deal about it, and if we would make less a big a deal about it, people would get over it. But whatever. That's my take.
I completely agree. I'm not a big fan of the dog collar. Now, the level of detail that you and many others like you probably is a little bit beyond me. And this is the part of the podcast where Tyler Dogden basically switches off.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
But yeah, no, I'm all for things that the kids get excited about.
Right.
Um, Especially when they came through recruitment to finally get to see something like that. So like to
Right.
me, it just needs to be, if it's part of the recruiting pitch, it just needs to be part of the repertoire so that the guys can get, you know,
Yeah.
that they can
Yeah.
live out their dream of wearing those things. So like it just seems really silly that we've gone so long and he's never brought them out.
Yeah, I agree. So that was fun.
Yep.
All right. I don't know where to go. Like, I definitely want to talk a lot about JT. I don't
Let's
know. You
go
want to do that first? You want
defense.
to talk defense first? Okay.
Let's go
Yeah.
defense because
Okay.
that
Let's do
was a
that.
pile. That's the pile of hot garbage that we have going on right now.
Yeah. And I mean, like here's my first note I had jotted down. Talk about what you didn't say with the preview about the triple option. So this is me like being superstitious and not wanting to say things. And I need to get over it because like what I say does not matter. So I'm just, but whatever. That's kind of how I am. I made the comment when we previewed the game around like, Kirby said that it's like the triple option and that it's the only team that we're going to play that plays this, and you're not preparing for this stuff every week. And I referenced Will Leach's comment from years ago at Tech in a post game around Tech where he had said that it seemed like Kirby Smart had solved Georgia Tech. What I didn't want to say, and like that was awesome, and that was in either 17 or 18. But what I didn't want to say was that in year one against Tech under Kirby Smart, we didn't do so well and they beat us. So what I was kind of worried about was that like the first time we see this Mike Leach offense, would we be able to handle it? Right. And does it take multiple times playing them to figure it out? So who knows? Definitely did not start off well defending against that offense.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, I owe an apology to Graham Coffee because early on in the game, I was advocating that we were just going to get absolutely obliterated in the zone scheme that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just hoping that we would go to more man coverage, but Graham kind of pointed out that, that's how teams have gotten absolutely destroyed by this offense. And frankly, like as you look afterwards, SEC StatCat came out with some stats that was talking about, and I think I sent them to you earlier today, where our defense is absolutely horrendous in man coverage. And had we done more man coverage, I feel like things might have been even worse than they were last night, which is kind of crazy to me. And that's kind of like the situation that we're in right now is like, what's gone on with the defense? And do we really miss LeCount and Jordan Davis as much as it seems like we are?
Right. I think, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, don't make excuses. It's like, well, it's a fact. Like, it's a fact that they're not there. Now, next man up, et cetera. And we talked about how that seemed to play out in the Auburn game when LeCount went out. I felt like it did not play out here. It didn't play out at Florida that way either, although Florida, we also lost Seam. So Davis, it's interesting with this game. Like, how big of an impact would he have made? They ran better. They were more effective with the run than I thought they would be. Not that they ran a lot, but it worked when they did it. And I guess it's
They
almost like a
outrushed Georgia.
right, right, exactly. I mean, I guess for them, it's almost like a trick play when they run the ball. It's like, what is this sorcery when they run the ball? So like, but we were primarily going with a 3-man rush though. So like, having Jordan Davis in the center of that 3-man rush, taking up multiple guys, I feel like would have, made a bigger impact than who we had out there. But I mean, I guess we'll never really know. But that was kind of my thought. And then, yeah, I mean, we missed the count, if anything else, just from like the communication standpoint of getting everyone. I don't know. Like, there were guys looking at each other, pointing what just happened, kind of stuff that I would like to think is less of an issue with LeCount out there, but who knows?
Right. I mean, yeah. I think that I don't know. There's something going on with the offensive line, as it goes to on the defensive side of things, or the offensive side of things as well for us. But from a defensive perspective, we were. I don't know, man. It makes me worried the way that we still have the top defense in the conference, but like, just it feels like that people are figuring out our defense, and that's largely what's going on across the board in the entire Southeastern Conference, is that maybe we don't need to be as concerned. I think you and I were joking about this. We maybe need to change the mantra of the podcast from "in the defense we trust" to I don't know, air it out.
I tweeted from the podcast account like late in the game. This is now an air raid account. So it was like, I was kind of looking for like, what's the halftime adjustment going to be? What's the halftime adjustment going to be on the defense? And we came out. Now, granted, we came out on offense first, a touchdown drive, but like came out still 3-man rush, nothing changing. I felt like when the defense got better and held them late and closed out the game with a sack, was more due to switching to. It wasn't necessarily a 4-man rush, but it was like a 4-man look, right? So it looked like there were 4 coming, and maybe they didn't. Sometimes one of those guys dropped back, but we lined up with it looking as though 4 were going to come. Whereas in the first half, it was always just 3 down linemen. So I don't know, but I guess got the sack when it mattered right at the end. We're not going to see this offense again. We'll see concepts from it. Some teams do stuff like that, but won't see it next week. So I don't know. I don't know how much to look at. Like, I don't know how worried to be about the defense in total. Like, yeah, it seems to have taken a step back. We've seen the defense play poor against not just LSU and then Alabama. It's continued to go on. But this one, though, I don't know what to make of it. It's like we didn't defend this offense that only Mike Leach runs very well.
Yeah, and I don't think that we didn't have any turnovers, right?
There was a drop. That one Scene got hit in the numbers and he dropped it. There was a drop kick, but that was it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, this is actually something that is like an existential. This is the existential crisis for UGA fans, is pivoting from being a run-first offense, which we're going to get to the offense in a second. But like, the double-edged sword of having a prolific offense is that it puts a lot of stress on the defense. So you end up in a lot of scenarios where you got 3 and outs much faster. The defense then racks up more plays. And if you're trying to run the ball and it's not going anywhere, then they're getting, get a lot of 3 and outs. And just flat out, just less time for you to kind of, there's none of those like 7-minute drives, 5-minute drives, where the offense is just grinding out yards and just chewing up clock. So having the defense, repping more during the game is something that we might have to get used to seeing.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing with what Mississippi State does, is like, you hear air raid and you think airing it out, bombs, and that certainly wasn't it. I mean, I know they had the one long touchdown pass, but it wasn't a long pass. Like, it was more of a catch and run. Right. I mean, they were very much like dig and dunk. And I guess the game plan was, keep everything in front of you. like after their opening drive, it was like, oh, a lot of yards, but only 3 points. And it kind of made me feel like the Kentucky game with their first long sustained drive, and they got a field goal, and then we were like shut them down. So that's kind of where my head was going. I was like, oh well, they got a lot of yards, but we held them to a field goal. That's okay, right? And then it was like, nope. That we weren't able to do that. Like they just kept getting touchdowns. But I'm guessing that was a bit of the game plan, and because there was like, I know we were texting nonstop, like, oh my gosh, like, first down is like guaranteed 5-yard pass over the middle every time. So I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel like we probably shouldn't put too much stock into it though, just from the uniqueness of what we were playing against, but we'll see.
That's fair. I certainly would love to have Jordan Davis back. The passing defense. That's the big head scratcher, is just how pedestrian our pass defense has been the entirety of the season. So like, I'm not really sure what to think about that. Like I said, we're missing LeCount. Obviously, is going to be a big bump, but like, there's been a noticeable drop in production on the defensive side of the ball from a passing game standpoint.
Yeah, there has. All right, I don't know. Anything else defense, or you want to talk about the kind of the opposite? Opposite side of this one.
The story of the game was the offense. I mean, that's kind of why I want to go ahead and get the defensive side out of the way. We've got concerns, obviously the uniqueness of the offense they're up against, but welcome to UGA, JT Daniels, or just throwing just TDs or whatever it is. That was I know Chase Kelly tweeted that, just touchdowns. I thought that was pretty good. JTD. So I like that. Print that shirt.
Exactly. I mean, so it's a good thing it panned out the way it did, because we could not run the ball. I mean, we had no running game, but I mean, really, we did talk about the fact that Mississippi State had a good defense coming in. What did surprise me again, because my mind had kind of shifted a bit, especially during the day on Saturday when the numbers started coming out, right, about how few players had traveled. I was expecting to be able to do a lot more. But I mean, they totally were selling out to stop the run. They were daring us to throw. And I think you said to me, like, would we have won that game with either of the other guys at quarterback? And I think it's a very valid question, because what we saw in this game was there were guys running around wide open, and JT Daniels got the ball to him.
Yeah. The way that they were playing defense, and that's something that I feel like that, when I was retweeting and, Bleacher Report was tweeting about JT Daniels, and like JT Daniels was getting a lot of love on Twitter on Saturday night, and I saw like some of my Florida friends, Auburn friends, like people were just like, y'all need to just calm down over there. Like, you guys beat Mississippi State, and I feel like that's something that has really been like caught, mixed up into this whole season and this whole 2020 situation, is the fact that Mississippi State, even though they only had, 40 something, 49, whatever it is, scholarship players, and they've had players dropping out all season long, like, they still have played lights out defense across the board. Their issues have been on the offensive side of the ball and how many times they've turned the ball over, which is part of the reason why they saw a new quarterback come up against the best defense in the SEC. They basically threw out a new quarterback out there, similar to the way that we did. And, they're the number 3 defense in the SEC as it stands right now from a statistical standpoint. They're a very good rush defense. They're a very good pass defense. And, I think that we got discounted a lot from other areas of, sportsdom or college footballdom. The fact that, you guys just beat Mississippi State. Talk to me when you beat Florida. And frankly, not to go backwards, but like, I feel like that if we had this offense against Florida, we probably would have beat them. I don't know that we would have beaten Alabama, but if you throw JT Daniels into the mix in that Florida game, if he were to perform the way that he performed, I think that we walk away with a win there for sure.
Yeah, I
And we
mean,
were
with a
much,
healthy and confident JT Daniels, right? I think that's the key because I mean,
right.
basically, it sounds like he wasn't there back then. So, anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, which we'll get to that stuff in a second, which I feel like that's going to be another big long discussion as well. But um, yeah, I think that he very clearly showed the skill set that he has. I don't know. Did you watch that video that I sent you from Top Billin, right? With Murph Baldwin.
I did watch that. Yes.
Yep, that video was pretty awesome because he had done so much time analyzing film with JT Daniels as a recruit when he worked with Rivals. I think he was actually the kind of the beat writer for USC for a while there. So when I was watching those videos and watching the videos of him breaking things down, like, I mean, he was genuinely impressed. The way that he was talking was just like the same kind of things and same kind of film analysis that people were giving Joe Burrow and stuff. Like he was just dropping dimes. And you realize watching it like in full speed on the actual game day, you were like, man, we're just spraying the ball all over the field. And then at the end of the game, you realize I didn't realize he threw 400 yards until
Yeah.
after the analysis and stuff. 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, the best quarterback, statistical performance since Aaron Murray, I think in 2013 versus Auburn, something
Yep.
like that.
Yep. That's right. Oh, yes. Of course, that had to be it, right? It's like,
yeah. Dang it! You can edit that out.
No, that's fine.
No, so watching the film review was just like, man, like he was hitting checkdowns, he was hitting a deep ball. Like, I mean, you and I were messaging back and forth, like, why aren't we running the ball? We just aren't. We literally couldn't do anything. Mississippi State basically sold out to stop the run because they didn't believe that we could beat them over the top. And
exactly.
boy, did we prove them wrong.
Well, that was the thing too. Is it right? It's like, and that's where, and I think it was with a friend of the show, Tim Riley, was texting me as well, like, like run the ball kind of stuff. And I was like, at one point I was like, no, like throw it.
Yes.
It's like we can't run the ball tonight for whatever reason. I will say, like, there were a couple of plays late where we did something different. Like there was a toss sweep. There was I haven't watched. I tweeted
that. I was like, does this toss sweep even still exist anymore? And then they
then we did it, right?
Minutes later, they did it, and I was like, they do exist.
Well, it was like on the last drive where we basically needed to chew the clock and just end the game, and we didn't. We ended up punting, but which basically was all because of the penalty that was called on Darnell Washington, which I never saw a replay of. So I don't know, like the blindside block. But it was, that play was a good running play. I guess there was an illegal block allegedly, according to the officials. There was another play though, where like we had like a bit of a formation that we hadn't seen all night, and had a good run with Zamir White. So that's the kind of thing where it's like, and Kirby did say something in the press conference. I don't remember which one, just about like being, that you can find ways to run and be creative. So I did kind of feel like the runs that we did very much felt like, well, we have to run it sometimes so that they at least don't know what we're going to do. But it may not work, but it's going to keep them honest. And it didn't feel like, I don't know, there was like a whole lot of thought or much trying into run different variations, but again, the pass, but I got to the point where I was just like, not yelling what is on the hat that you're wearing right now. I was not saying run the dang ball. I was just like, throw the dang ball. Why are we even running?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we had kind of this opposite of the last game where you and I were getting frustrated that we would come out after, like, we would come out and start throwing on first and second down. And we were like, why are we throwing? We have no business even trying to throw the ball right now. Let's run the ball. And then we come out similarly, like in the second half, I feel like that they were trying to run the ball. And we were like, why are we running the ball? Can we just throw it?
Right. So, exactly.
But that said, like, even with what we were doing, like, I think that, some stats to really talk about that really are just jarring and eye popping when you think about them. So Georgia had this is from SEC StatCat. Georgia had what, 0.33 rushing yards before contact on average.
Mm,
That is
yeah.
absolutely in your face. We don't give a crap about what you're doing on offense. From a passing
Mm-hmm.
game standpoint, we're going to shut you down. So
Yep.
like
Yep.
only one carry for 10 yards in the
Yeah.
entire game. So
Yeah.
like when you can't get that kind of push off the line, like there at that point you do have to look at the numbers. And this is where I think that some of the money balling that's going on in the sports world is you basically have to throw everything to the wind when you have stats like that staring you in the face. The other thing that I
Right.
feel like was just eye popping was the fact that, his JT Daniels completion percentage, his adjusted completion percentage, which I think rules out like drops and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, like basically just pure passes that he was able to get to receivers. He had a 95% completion percentage. If you are
Wow.
throwing the ball and are catching it 95% of the time, that to me is just, yeah, let's not even worry about running the ball, particularly when
Yeah.
you're talking about throwing it deep. And that's where I feel like that in my mind, as I'm looking at this game, I'm thinking back to the previous games. Like you and I were asking
Mm-hmm.
these questions. Why are we throwing the ball so deep? Why do we keep going for it all? Why are we doing
Mm-hmm.
these things when it just doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense? Now I'm starting to realize that I feel like that Monken's been running this offense, and we talked about it, like he's been running this offense without the right personnel. And,
Yeah.
some of that's on Monken. And I think that as we do a postmortem on this season, we still have to kind of address some of that, this lack of accountability for, we've got to run an offense with the personnel that we have available to us.
Yeah.
And in this case, we have JT Daniels now available. And I feel like now that square peg fits in the square hole, and,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
circle pegs are no longer really part of the equation unless they need to be, which, let's knock on wood, knock on your head, Jim, that we don't need to go back to those guys, and that JT Daniels can continue his progression here to set us up for a really nice 2021 and not put too much pressure on the incoming superstar quarterback of the future.
Right.
But when you look at his passing charts and you look at his deep balls and things like that, like, I mean, we went from having a quarterback that could barely complete 40% of his passes, to all of a sudden we've got a quarterback that's completing, 60% of his passes
So he
on
was, he was
on
73% in this game period.
on the deep balls. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
can. I'm talking about on the deep balls, like
Deep balls
throwing
alone.
deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So like, um, the other numbers to look at, I think when we were looking at Stetson Bennett's numbers, his uncatchable pass rate was like 30 something percent, I think, or something ridiculous, where it was just like,
Yeah.
3 out of 10 times he's throwing a ball that no one's going to catch.
Right.
And then the interceptable pass, the numbers are basically cut in half. So he was basically throwing passes that had very, very low percentages of being intercepted by the defense and very, very low percentages of uncatchable. So those are
Yeah.
the types of things that are going to create a very successful passing game for us moving forward, especially if we can replicate that against teams that have much worse defenses, much like our upcoming game. And frankly, the hindsight's 2020, Florida has a worse defense than Mississippi State.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I had a moment in the game. So I want to take you back to the preview episode. And I talked about, wanting to see Daniels, and that I hadn't had that moment yet this season that I've had in the past. Right. So I talked about an App State game in 17, kind of had that moment when Fromm came in. It was like, whoa, this is the guy. I have to update. I got a text message from my wife late last week. She was listening to our preview episode, and this is what she texted me. I'm about halfway through the podcast. ... You sound like you are hoping for a Hallmark Christmas movie romance with your quarterback situation. So I got a good laugh out of that. I was like, whatever. I know what I want. I know what I want. Why can't I be happy? It's like, wow, whatever. It's fine to her. So we're sitting on the couch watching the game Saturday night. There's a point in the game. I think it was like the long bomb to Burton for a touchdown. And I put my hand on my wife's knee and I looked her in the eye and I said, I just had my hallmark moment with a quarterback.
which I think was everybody's hallmark moment, because battle hymnal did this when I was watching the battle hymnal, and Graham and those guys were reviewing, Graham and Nathan, when they were reviewing the film there, I had to pause it in the middle of that because I didn't get an opportunity to watch the game on replay for this time around. So like, God bless those guys for doing the film review for me.
Right.
Because I paused it on that exact pass play on one of the plays. Maybe it's not the exact one, but like one of the plays to Burton for his touchdown where he like kind of slid kind of slyly, like he kind of came up, was like, oh yeah, look what I just did kind of thing.
Yeah.
Our quarterback had multiple options underneath, but you felt like that he was going to complete that ball deep when he threw it. He passed up two options that were shorter, that were open, and he tried to hit Burton. I think that goes back to, earlier this season, if Stetson Bennett hits those passes, it's moxie or whatever. And I think that's a perfect example of that. Like if he gets intercepted or if it goes incomplete, it's like, oh, suddenly that touchdown gets wiped off the board and we're in fourth down. We got to kick a field goal. But he completed it, and it was a tough pass. It was a tough throw, and he's the one that was able to complete it. And that, to me, was my hallmark moment, was watching him. Yes, I've got other options, which, holy cow, we need to talk about that as well. Seeing wide open receivers, he was doing check downs, he was hitting the ball deep. He was making all the throws and looked every bit the 5-star quarterback that we've been hoping that he would be. And I have some thoughts on how he stacks up, and the whole conversation with Jamie Newman, because I no longer feel like that he left because of he was going to lose the job to Stetson Bennett or anything like that. I actually feel like that, based on what we saw out there, that perhaps he left because he knew what was going to happen eventually at some point this season, that he was going to get beaten out by a healthy JT Daniels, and it would hurt his draft stock even more had he had to endure losing the starting job to JT Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot more sense than what we had heard before, because like it didn't, seemingly he wouldn't have thought he was going to lose it right away, based on what we've heard now, and we can get to that in just a second. But that would make sense. I was going to say, with that, like that bomb to Burton, it actually even reminded me of in 2007, the original blackout game against Auburn, like same end zone, same corner of the end zone, Stafford to Massaquoi, that huge bomb. I don't know, it reminded me of that. Now, Burton was not as open as Massaquoi was. But I don't know. Same corner of the end zone made me think of that. That was amazing. We had the return of George Pickens, and he looked like George Pickens that we've known and love. That was awesome. Snatching the ball out of the air. We had a D-Rob sighting. I mean, to your point, like the checkdowns. I mean, we saw receivers like snatching the ball out of the air, extended. It just looked completely different. And then have to bring up the first the last touchdown, right? Where first down, dropped, touchdown in the end zone by Jackson. Second down, dropped, touchdown by Pickens, who I just mentioned, in the end zone. Third down, converted, but called back for holding. So then we have 3rd and 20, and I tweeted it was like, first down, TD drop, second down, TD drop, third down, holding, third down again, JT, I got this. It's just like just absolute bomb to Jackson. And Jackson was wide open on that one. I mean, the deep ball was clicking. And I think you're right, like on those reads, right? Like you said, like maybe Bennett and Mathis were making the right read based on what they've been coached to do, actually, right? By Monken, because it definitely looked like that was the right read with JT throwing the ball. I think he's just throws a better deep ball than those guys do.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely accurate, and it's just nice to see someone completing these passes. I mean, and you go back and you think about it, like, we're talking about the completion percentage that he has. Like, what was it was like 73 or 74% or something like that.
Yeah.
Was it Rogers? Rogers was the Mississippi State quarterback. I think that they had mentioned in the game that he actually leads the SEC or something like that in completion percentage. I mean, he had like 70%. Like, he was completing 70% of his passes. So JT Daniels suddenly is leading the SEC in completion percentage as far as I sit. But like, obviously you need to throw more balls or have more starts or whatever. But like, all those numbers, I feel like, are kind of underscoring that we were just sorely missing a player that could make the throws that were demanded of the offense that was put in front of them. Yep. And we finally have a guy that can do it. And frankly, like, I mean, he exhibited some mobility. And the other concern is that I feel like, I don't know how you felt, but like every time one of those sacks happened, I was just like holding my breath. I was just like waiting to see, like, oh my gosh, is he going to get up? Is he going to get up? And I heard someone say that he was actually limping around a little bit, which, I mean, I don't think I saw that, but like, I mean, the guy's got a brace on. In the top billings video review, Murph Baldwin made a comment that his mechanics looked a little weird, which, I went back and looked at some of those older videos of him kind of kicking his foot up on those deep balls. When he throws those deep balls, if you go back and look at the film, he kicks his leg way up. His back foot just kind of lifts up off the ground like he is doing a yeah. He's like kicking somebody, and I went back and looked at his tape on some of those deep balls, and he did kind of do that a little bit, but nothing like what he did during the game on Saturday. And I wonder if that has to do with his injury.
Yeah. I noticed that a little bit live in the game. Just like, I mean, when he throws the deep ball, like just the way he heaves it, I mean, it is like a full body throwing motion. Right. So yeah, that was how I noticed it during the game, or what I noticed. But yeah, so I don't know. I guess I'm not as hung up on this as I was on Saturday and even on Sunday when I was texting you, just around the talk we've just had around, we didn't have the guy, or the offense was kind of built for him, it seems, or I guess he's able to execute what was being asked all year, I would say. And so obviously the questions arose, why didn't we see him until now? Which, again, we talked about in the preview. We said, man, if he comes out there and lights it up, then all the questions are going to come in. Why didn't we see him? Why didn't we see him? And I think, like, at this point now, after having read that article, and I forget who it was, but where there's quotes, whoever it was that interviewed his dad, like when the family is coming in and backing up the coach's decision, right, and saying like they played him when he was ready, that I think I'm okay with it. I'll just say that, like, the way Kirby answered the questions Saturday night, I feel like he does himself a disservice when he, there was the one question was like, what do you say to someone who says, why didn't he play before tonight? His response was something like, well, I say that I've been doing this for 25 years and I know what it's like just
that was his.
Why does he have to say that?
That was his in the arena comment.
Right, exactly. I don't know. So I'm not a huge fan of
Wasn't that Rick?
Rick was the one that said in the arena.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the in the arena defense, but I mean, and then I think it was actually Graham Coffey had like retweeted. So because there was a quote from Daniels where Daniels got asked, he was like, well, like, as far as I'm concerned, I was cleared after the Arkansas game, and ever since then it was a coach's decision. And Graham was like, and thus JT Daniels' media availability has ended. It's like we'll never hear from him again.
We're never going to hear from that guy again. Tim Riggins looking guy up there.
Right. Yeah, definitely an improvement, I would say, without the mustache. I don't know, just my opinion.
Agreed.
But like, so there was the kind of the in the arena type comment, and then I mean, just say he wasn't physically ready. I mean, and he kind of like roundabout eventually said it, because it sounds like he wasn't cleared for Arkansas, so they didn't want to give him all those reps, so they went to Mathis. And so then he gets cleared after that, and so then he's whatever 2 weeks behind, I guess, on reps, 2 to 3 weeks behind on first team reps. But there was also some talk about his mobility, like that they felt like he was not moving well in the pocket, and not even that they needed like a running quarterback, but whatever, just escapability, which we saw was good on the. It was I can't remember if it was the first down or second down touchdown drop. Like he made an amazing escape in the pocket where he like ducked under somebody, spun around, and then flung it perfectly. I think it was the Pickens one. So yeah, I mean, he was able to move. We didn't see any like he wasn't like running the zone or even reading, keeping it. I don't think he's that kind of quarterback, but didn't need him to do that. So I don't know. Like I said, I was not happy. I would guess I would just say that I wasn't so much happy with the answers that were given. Like at this point, with what I know, I'm not so much questioning like he should have been out there. Why wasn't he out there? Sounds like we know. Like yes, he was medically cleared, but they've talked about that he's continued to get stronger, and Daniel said he's thankful for Corson and the training staff, getting, continuing to help him increase his strength and mobility, et cetera. So I don't know. But I felt like the way everything was answered Saturday night could have been answered better to decrease the freak out. I guess, I don't know. I guess it doesn't so much really matter anyways, but I don't know. That was kind of my take there.
The author of the article that puts everything to bed was Mike Griffith, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Mike Griffith on Dog Nation.
Okay.
He's the one that got to the bottom of that and got all of the quotes from his parents. And I mentioned this as well, was on Twitter, but if you read that article, and if you want to give a read to it, don't know what we're talking about. The headline is "No Second Guessing from JT Daniels' Family After 401-Yard Passing Performance." That's the headline.
Yeah.
They were not second guessing him, and neither should you, Dog Nation. Go and read it. Dog Nation, not go and read Dog Nation, but like we're talking to the Dog Nation proper.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, basically the dad got up and said, we appreciate Kirby taking our son's, health into consideration and not rushing things. And like his dad even comes out and flat out says that you could just tell after the surgery, when he got out and started practicing and things, like you could just tell that he was not 100%. And if your dad can tell, I promise you that Todd Monken and Kirby Smart and all the players probably can tell that he's not 100%. And so that left, unfortunately, and this is part of the whole transfer saga, Jamie Newman had taken up all those first team snaps, left Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis, who was also coming off of an injury and hadn't played in a while. So like really our options were super limited at quarterback. And so for anyone to come back and say JT Daniels should have been playing all along, that's easy to say in hindsight. But had we thrown him out there, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, we were at Alabama. If he had been out there for the Alabama game, after witnessing the struggles of Mathis and Stetson coming on or whatever, but like very clearly, he wasn't going to be throwing the ball super deep with effectiveness. So had we thrown Daniels out there at an Alabama or in the Florida game or something along those lines, there's no telling what would have happened had he gotten hurt again, which I think, someone made I can't remember who it was. Someone made the comparison to Blaylock coming back too early and gets hurt. So, I think that there's a little bit of that involved as well, is that this is kind of an odd year in general. We don't really have a whole lot of good options, but we got a quarterback that seems like he's, at least close to 100%, if not already 100%, based on how he was moving around. Like you were saying, that one that one pass play where he juked out 2 defenders, that was impressive for a guy that
Yeah.
supposedly, had just had cleanup surgery, quote unquote, in January, which, that's something else to kind of throw a wrench in. Had he just had his surgery last year and gone through the recovery and all that kind of stuff, I do feel like that he probably would have been starting from day one had he not had that surgery back in January that really threw a wrench into everything. Because once you go back in for a cleanup surgery, at that point it becomes, well, how much cleanup did they really have to do? Like, what were there complications after that surgery? There? Like, nobody really knows what was going on, but obviously his parents did. So, and I'm glad to see that it wasn't his parents that were coming out here and saying like, yeah, we didn't want him to play. We asked him not to, whatever. At least they're like supporting the narrative that this was.
The other side made for great Twitter rumors a few weeks ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Great Twitter rumors, guys, but not rooted in reality, it seems. So
right. I don't know. I just overall, like, kind of what we had asked for is like, have a plan. We clearly had a plan in this game. It was JT Daniels, and let's see if we can find someone who can be that day one starter next year. And I know it's one game, but JT Daniels certainly looked capable of that. So I don't know, he is the guy. He is the guy for now. And I feel like we're in pretty good hands.
Yeah. As Steve Daniels, as Mr. Daniels said, frankly, this was a huge thing to be putting out on the recruiting trail, in my opinion, because, not only does he specifically cite, the support that the staff and Kirby Smart gave to Dwan Mathis to allow him to come back and give him a shot and give him a chance multiple times. And, and then he goes on to say, we're ecstatic to be part of the Bulldog family and they want to see where it can go. And basically said the same thing. We got the talent, we got the system, let's go. Like, that's what he said. We got the talent, we got the system, let's go.
Yep. I agree, Mr. Daniels.
Dog bones all around.
Absolutely. Yeah, seriously. Cool. All right, that's all I got for this one. I don't know, you got anything else?
We haven't talked about the hot garbage that the offensive line on the running game was, but I think that some of that was due to what we were doing. But I do think that there were things that were happening along the offensive line with the film review. Mr. Schaefer. There's a couple of things that I saw in the game where I'm not really sure what we were doing along the offensive line that I do feel like are concerns that we have, because it's been mind-numbingly inconsistent the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely, they were stacking the box. They were doing like zone run blitzes and such. But I mean, the issue, like the stat you had earlier about the yards pre-contact being so low, those are pretty eye-popping. And I would say it matches up with what I felt like I was seeing. I mean, the backs had nowhere to run at all. Nowhere. I mean, it was like they got handed the ball and they were getting hit is what it felt like. And that sounds like that kind of played out. I mean, our offensive line was they were getting whipped, right? I mean, they were getting bull rushed. They were getting knocked back. There was no push except for a handful of plays, right? So that definitely needs to be worked on. I would say, like, if I'm South Carolina and I look at the tape here, I'm not so sure that I would say like, hey, let's sell out to stop the run and make them beat us through the air, because they saw what just happened. And we'll talk about that when we preview South Carolina. But
I was just about to say, wait a second, did we just pivot to South Carolina?
Right. Yeah. Next episode. But yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of how I'm kind of looking at it. Yeah. I mean, it was not good, Bob. On Saturday, definitely needs to improve.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd have told me that we were going to get into a track meet with Mississippi State, I would have told you that it was going to end very poorly for the Georgia Bulldog, the boys in red and black. But the fact that we survived somewhat of a track meet-ish, to me was nice to see us, because obviously we weren't able to do that earlier in the season multiple times.
Right.
But it was nice to not see things that didn't go right on defense at least get somewhat supported Like, I don't know about you, but when I was watching the game and we were in like a third down or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that touchdown pass to Burton where he had a couple of guys down short to try to get the first down. But like whenever we got into those third down scenarios, like I remember watching the game, I was outside, it was kind of, we had a fire going and everything like that. And I was just like, yeah, we got this. We're going to convert this. We got this.
That's
Like
how I felt too. That's
it
how I
just
felt
felt like that
too.
we could do whatever we wanted to in the passing game. And frankly, the numbers bear that out based on what we were just talking about. But like, I
Yeah.
never really doubted that he was going to convert the third downs. Now, would I prefer that we have better success on first and second down, which I think was something that they talked about in the broadcast that Mississippi State was doing really well about. The fact that they were getting into third and short and third and mediums, that we weren't really giving them too much of a problem on third down. So for us to convert those things was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Actually, you know what? The only other thing I didn't say was why we're late. We did both have kind of crazy weekends. I had my oldest daughter had like the premiere of her play online that they've been working on for a while. My youngest daughter was in a soccer tournament. Your son was in a soccer tournament. So we were both back and forth from soccer fields on Saturday and Sunday, and we were quite exhausted. So that's why we're recording this Monday night instead of the usual Sunday. So that's the reasoning as for getting up. We had lots of dad duties going on this weekend. So.
Hashtag dad life.
That's right. So I forgot there was something I forgot to mention. Basketball. So we've got the first basketball game is actually this week. It's on Wednesday.
Okay.
Did you see that we are also already have a cancellation?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So and it's actually the second game. So supposed to play Gardner Webb on Saturday, and they're having COVID issues, and so that has been canceled, and they are looking for a replacement. So I did see. Shoot, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like Georgia Tech, for Georgia Tech in there because they're not on the schedule. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm definitely worried with like basketball is indoors and all this stuff, but so we'll see how much into it we can get.
So David Hale got into a bit of a situation on Twitter about that.
Really?
I don't know if you follow him. He used to be the beat writer, I think, for the Athens
Yeah.
Banner Herald or something like that.
Yep, he was.
So he had said something on Twitter about that. Like he was basically saying, I just don't see how they're going to have a normal basketball season. Like I think that we should probably start looking at like April, May launch date as opposed to like right now. Cause I just don't, and I agree with him, frankly, because the way that things are going right now, like I look at my friends, sphere or whatever, like you got people that usually have like these massive holiday parties in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we're not having anything. It's COVID until they get a vaccine. Right. It's like, if they're canceling like Christmas parties amongst people whose kids and frankly, wives and guys have been hanging out, like if you're canceling Christmas parties like that, when we've literally been doing this kind of stuff all day, all year long with, pool, summer, kids in the neighborhood kind of thing, like get-togethers, here and there, small get-togethers here and there. But like, I don't know. I just don't see the basketball season and the football, like college football's been absolutely going nuts with it too. Like, right. I mean, you got BYU can't get a deal done with Washington because Washington refuses to guarantee that they're going to play.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. I just don't see basketball happening this year. Like it's just like the worst timing possible, in my opinion.
Yeah. We'll see. We got first game is Wednesday, so November 25th against Columbus State. So it's going to be like totally different team, right? We talked about Anthony Edwards is gone. A lot of other turnover aside from that. I mean, Severe Wheeler, point guard, is back, and then Tumani Kamara, and then it's like a bunch of transfers. So I'm gonna have to watch till like refamiliarize myself with the roster. So I look forward to that. I'll do that Wednesday night. So I don't know, that's my basketball season preview in a nutshell. Hopefully we can play the games, and I'm looking forward to meeting these guys. So cool, man. All right. You got anything else?
I got nothing else. Let's just roll on with the season and see where the chips fall.
Sounds good to me. All right, man. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.